Hey everyone, you're with Noor here and welcome back to another video on the channel. In this video, I'm going to be going over the importance of disassociating yourself from the failures that happen in your professional and personal life. And this is one of the most powerful mindset shifts that you can actually have, especially as someone that is looking to succeed as a recoverpreneur and you're looking to reinvent yourself post entrepreneurship. Okay, now what tends to happen with most people is that whenever they fail at something, right, whether it's entrepreneurship or their studies, for example, they then take that failure at one single thing and assume that they as an individual are a complete failure and they can't achieve anything else in their life. And this is extremely dangerous because what tends to happen is that these individuals pretty much, associate their identity with their failures. And what that means is that if they fail at one thing, they then believe that they as a whole are a failure and they can't achieve anything else. And this is extremely dangerous, especially, for example, if you're someone like a recoverpreneur that's looking to rebuild themselves, because you'll fall into the trap of thinking that because you failed at entrepreneurship, you can't succeed at anything else. It's the same principle with, some people who say because they failed at their studies, they can't achieve, achieve a great career, when that isn't true whatsoever. Okay, and this is something I learned from a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it's an extremely powerful principle to have, and it's very, very important for everyone to understand so that they are able to achieve success in any area of their life, and more importantly, not let failure be definitive. Okay, so I'm going to share some key examples of real life individuals to show you their failures and ultimately what they went on to become. Okay, so first example we've got is Walt Disney. So Walt Disney, creator of Disney, when he was first starting out, he actually worked at a newspaper, and he got fired from a newspaper. Okay, rather than let that firing define him as a failure at being an artist or as a creative, he didn't let that stop him, and he still proceeded to create Disney. Now, if he was someone that allowed his failure to be part of his identity, and that define his identity, there's no chance in hell he would have proceeded to create Disney. Okay, just because he failed at a newspaper, this was completely separate from him as an individual as a whole, and this allowed him to proceed to the next challenge, to his next objective, and go on to achieve significant success. Okay, the next example we've got is Warren Buffett. So prior to Berkshire Hathaway, he had a previous investment partnership before that which didn't do so well. And again, if he had the mindset of an individual where he's defined by a single failure, he wouldn't have proceeded to create Berkshire Hathaway, which of course became one of the most prominent investment firms in the entire investment funds, or whatever it is, in the entire world. Okay, again, another example of someone who failed at something, yet the failure didn't define them as an individual, which allowed them to proceed and achieve significant success. Oprah Winfrey, another one. Okay, before she was even a talk show host in her show, right, that's known globally, she was actually a news anchor, and she was struggling in that, and to be honest, she wasn't that good. Now again, if she allowed that failure as a news host anchor to define her and define her overall ability and her as an individual, she would have pulled the plug completely and not proceeded to continue to try and continue to succeed elsewhere. Okay, but that failure didn't define her as a person, and again, just to repeat myself here, she kept on going and achieved significant success elsewhere. Ralph Lauren, okay, before he even created the clothing brand, I looked it up, and apparently he tried creating a necklace business. Okay, that failed. Okay, it failed badly. But again, heads up in advance, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's important that this is drilled into your heads here. He proceeded to create his own clothing label, Ralph Lauren, which has done very, very well, even though his initial idea of a necklace business failed miserably. Again, if he was an individual where his failures defined him and his identity, he would not have proceeded to succeed the way he succeeded. Thomas Edison failed hundreds of times when it came to creating the light bulb, ended up proceeding to create the light bulb and made it work, okay? He viewed his failures as lessons rather than as something that is definitive where he should stop altogether, okay? And beyond the light bulb itself, Edison still achieved some amazing, findings. I think he discovered the ability to make photographs or something. I'm not too sure, but again, another example of someone who was constantly failing, but he never let those failures define him. Okay, he kept on going and going and going. Michael Jordan, okay, arguably the greatest basketball player in the history of the NBA and in basketball in general. Prior to the NBA, okay, he was cut from his high school team and he was labeled as not good enough. Now, if he let that failure define him, he would not have made it to the NBA in the first place. He ended up making it to the NBA. And then when he was in the NBA, he was consistently losing in the playoffs. Now, if he let those consistent playoff losses define him, he would never go on to become the man that ended up winning 6 championships and ultimately becoming the greatest player in the world. Again, here we have a series of different levels of failure, but none of them defined him as an individual, which allowed him to power through those failures and achieve something worthwhile. And the final example I've got here, and probably my favorite one, is Vera Wang. Failed to make it as an ice skating Olympian, okay? So she was an aspiring ice skating Olympian. She failed to achieve that goal. She was then a fashion editor at a newspaper or something, and she failed to do that as well. She wasn't quite good at it, only to then become one of the best, prominent designers in the world, okay? So this is a woman who failed at becoming an ice skating Olympian, right? Who then went into a completely different pathway where she tried her hand at being a fashion editor, and she wasn't good at that, and only to then become a designer herself. That turns out to be, she built an incredibly, globally renowned brand, okay? And the reason why this is my favorite example is because here you have an example of an individual who failed at making it as an ice skating Olympian, yet that failure at one thing didn't stop her from succeeding in a completely different goal, okay? If she allowed herself to fail at being an ice skating Olympian, and it was part of her identity, there's no way she would have succeeded in anything else. But the fact that she didn't let that failure at that one thing be associated with her identity meant she was able to carry on and achieve significant success elsewhere. So here, these are just some examples for you to understand the importance of disassociating yourself as an individual from the failures that happen, okay? Because the failures are going to happen. It's just part and parcel of the game. And more importantly, you don't want the failures to be definitive, okay? The minute you allow the failures to be definitive is when you allow that to poison your identity, which will then prevent you from chasing success elsewhere, okay? It's really, really important that you don't allow your failures to be this life and death type of thing when it really isn't. You always have the opportunity to reinvent yourself and achieve something great. Now, what can we learn from it? Obviously, there's loads of things to learn from it, but there's some key parts. Like I mentioned, failure is not definitive. You may fail at something, but that doesn't mean you as an individual are a failure as a whole. So we come back to the example of, what we cover on this channel. Most of the people that I want to reach here, you've probably failed at entrepreneurship. Now, just because you failed at entrepreneurship and running your own business doesn't mean that you as an individual are a failure that can't achieve great things anywhere else. That's just not true. You can still achieve great things outside of entrepreneurship, and you shouldn't let your failure as an entrepreneur define you as a whole. And it's funny because even if you failed at entrepreneurship the first time round, there's no reason why you can't succeed the second or third time round, okay? It's something that you can go at again and again, and it's not something where you failed at it once and that's it. You can't do it ever again. Okay, take me for example. I failed at entrepreneurship because I was trying to run my own marketing agency. I had clients, but I just couldn't deliver good results. And now I'm in a position where I run operations for a coaching program, and I've achieved some significant success in terms of being able to earn the money that I wanted to earn initially by running a business. I now earn business owner money without actually running a business myself, which is fantastic. But that being said, just because I failed that business the first time round doesn't mean that I can't revisit it in the near future and make it a success. Okay, so similar to what I'm doing here with this channel, if I were to start coaching people on succeeding outside of entrepreneurship, there's no reason why that coaching business, for example, won't be able to succeed, because my first attempt at entrepreneurship doesn't define me, and it shouldn't define you either. Okay, another key example here is your studies. So many people, they assume that just because they got bad grades in school and they didn't do well and they got kicked out, they assume that defines them as an individual, and they can't get a good job and they can't make good money and they just can't have a good life because they never got the A stars, they never went to university, they got kicked out. That couldn't be further from the truth. If you allow your grades on a paper to simply define you, then that's your business. But the truth of the matter is, it's just something that you failed at. It doesn't mean that you collectively as an individual are a failure. You can still proceed to go and achieve great things. There's so many examples of people that failed miserably in school, yet they have achieved significant things outside of education. They've still been able to achieve great careers, great businesses, and great lives as a whole, because they never let their educations or what letters they've got on a piece of paper define them. The individuals that do let their grades define them are the people that fail to achieve significant success because they've identified their failure at school with them being a failure as an individual, and then that translates to everything that you attempt to do. So super important lesson there. Secondly, most people accept their failure as their final fate. As a result, they never go on to achieve anything, and they waste so much untapped potential because they believe they have nothing else to offer. This is so sad, but it's true. Because people fail at one thing, they feel like they have nothing to offer the world elsewhere, and as a result, they don't even try to reinvent themselves. They just assume they're a failure at everything they'll do, and as a result, they just drown in their own misery, and they drown in their own misery, and they feel sorry for themselves, and it's really sad to see. And it almost comes back to a failing entrepreneurship, for example. If, for example, I was someone that failed at entrepreneurship and then I assumed, right, I'm worthless and I can't do anything, I wouldn't have been able to be in the position I'm in now, where I played a significant part in managing the operations of a successful coaching business and scaling it to 7 figures. Okay, and this is really powerful because when I personally failed at entrepreneurship, I thought to myself that that's it. I'm worthless. I don't have any relevant skills, and I can't really offer much. But the people that founders actually hired me, who were actually my coaches and mentors at one point, they saw something different. They saw that I could be of value to them elsewhere, and I could achieve great things, outside of entrepreneurship. Okay, and that's why I can see it firsthand, because I was nearly that individual once, where just because I failed at entrepreneurship, I assumed that I wouldn't be good at anything else, when that couldn't be further from the truth. And that's what many people face here, because once they fail at one thing, they assume failure as their final fate, and they assume they can't be great and they can't achieve significant success elsewhere, when that couldn't be further from the truth. Third thing, you can reinvent yourself regardless of age or what you do. Okay, prominent example following the theme of this channel and what we talk about here: failed entrepreneur to successful recoverpreneur. If you failed as a business owner, it doesn't mean you can't success elsewhere. I've seen failed business owners fail at business only to succeed as incredible closers, appointment setters, integrators, heads of operations, all of these different things, right, where they've been able to achieve a significant success and, you know, significant wealth as a result. So you can always reinvent yourself regardless of age or what you do. Vera Wang is a fantastic example of this, okay? Wanted to be an ice skating Olympian, completely reinvented herself in a completely different field and achieved significant success. And you can do the same, okay? Don't feel the need to be stuck in the mud on one single thing and one single industry. You can always reinvent yourself. You can always pursue something new. Don't feel attached to just one route, okay? Be fluid, be water, okay? Be adaptable, okay? And be open to new things. And the final thing we can learn is that it's important to disassociate yourself from your failures and your successes. Really important to note about the successes as well. Because, you know, the minute you attach your identity to one or the other is the minute you position yourself as a fragile being who can collapse in a matter of seconds. So we spoke about the importance of disassociating yourself from your failures, because when you fail as an individual, it's easy to let that failure define you as an individual and define your whole identity. And what that then happens is that whenever you approach something new, you know, you're probably going to approach it with a loser mentality because you assume that you're a failure at everything, okay? The same goes for winning and succeeding. Whilst, you know, you want to have a positive mindset and, you know, you always want to remind yourself of, you know, the success and the wins you have, you don't want to define your identity by each individual success that you actually have. The reason why this is dangerous is because the minute you face a failure, for example, or the minute you don't succeed, is the minute you fall into the trap of viewing yourself as a failure. So, you know, again, we talk about the importance of disassociating yourself from your failures. You also want to disassociate yourself from your successes, okay? So just because you succeeded at certain things, don't fall into the trap of thinking that you as an individual, for example, are successful at everything, when in reality, you know, you may be successful at some things, but it doesn't mean that you're successful at everything. And again, it's important to reiterate, it's important to have that positive mindset where, you know, you do look at your wins, your successes and all that good stuff, but you don't want to be obsessed with them to the point where, you know, you attach your identity to your successes, because again, it sets you up to be in a position where you're an individual where the minute you fail at something, you crumble and you get into this emotional state where you say you've gone from a great success to an immediate failure, and now your identity has shifted from someone that's a success to an ultimate failure, and you start approaching different things and different challenges the wrong way. So in this case, you just want your identity to be neutral, okay? To be like water, to be just, you know, effortless, to flow, and not to put too much pressure on yourself, okay? So separate yourself from not only your success, from your failures, but your successes as well. Don't let it get to your head. So yeah, that's just the video right there, covering the importance of not letting your failures define you as an individual, and ultimately disassociating yourself from the failures at hand to allow you to consistently reinvent yourself and consistently achieve success, irregardless of the failures that you encounter in both your personal and professional life. So yeah, hopefully you found the video valuable, guys, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.